so thank you for joining us today. I think this would be a great addition for our audience. A lot of business owners, and myself included, kind of lose sight of taking care of yourself, health, nutrition, and even appearance to some extent when you get so focused on producing. So for anyone that's not familiar with you, could you just take a little time to tell us about yourself, introduce yourself, and what you're going to talk about today?
Sure. I'm Esther Blum. I'm an integrative dietitian, which means I take the whole person into account and work with whole food diets. I work with lifestyle. I work with supplements. And I'm kind of a rogue dietitian. So there's a lot more that meets the eye to nutrition than just, moderation and portion sizes and the food guide pyramid. So I tend to go a lot deeper than that. I'm a best-selling author. I have 4 books published, and I'm working on my 5th. And I speak to both large and small groups, and I host retreats in Connecticut. So I'm excited to work with all of you and hear from you today.
Perfect. Well, as you touched on, you're a holistic nutritionist, and we're speaking to a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs in this summit. So keeping that in mind, that we're going to have a lot of people with high drive and high focus that tend to lose concentration on important things, nutrition being one of them. What are some steps that your average business owner can take to make sure that they don't wake up one day almost having a heart attack and 40 pounds heavier and miserable and tired and don't realize why?
Your health has to be prioritized along with it has to be scheduled into your day the way you schedule any other meeting. It's non-negotiable. And the way I recommend, the most successful entrepreneurs I know wake up early. They wake up around 4 or 5. And they get in their exercise first thing in the morning, so there's no excuses. It's out of the way. I find personally, too, if I wait past 10 a.m., it really past 8 or 9. It's just never happening for me. So I schedule in morning exercise, and also I recommend, and this is like the number one, if you only take one tip away from today, the number one tip that you should do is to start the day with a green juice. An alkalinizing juice has to be nothing complicated. It's called celery juice, and you literally take a whole stalk of celery, with all the ribs. It's a bunch of celery, and you stick it in a juicer, and you try to drink 16 ounces per day. Why is this important? Because when we are under stress, and most of us, if you are an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, if you're running a company of 500 or a company of 1, we all have stress. We're all trying to think about what's the next best move for me. How can I grow my business? How can I connect better to my audience? And so when we are stressed, our body physically stops the production of hydrochloric acid. Our liver shuts down and says, okay, there's a fire in the building, everyone exit, let's get out. And so all of a sudden we start to get these symptoms like I'm bloated, I'm gassy, I ate lunch, I'm so tired during the day, I'm crashing at 4 p.m. Starting your day with some celery juice. I love it because it's not a pill or a supplement, it's a food, and I do recommend organic celery. It just tastes better, but it doesn't have the pesticides or chemical sprays on it. But B, it is the only food that actually restores that balance of hydrochloric acid into your stomach. And a lot of people take digestive enzymes, or everyone's on Prilosec, but a lot of us are on medications that block the stomach's production of acid, and we actually need that acid to prevent heartburn and to absorb our trace minerals and our nutrients. So celery juice is the only food that restores that balance of hydrochloric acid in your stomach. And if you've had, struggles for a long time, it will take a long time to repair, but in time it will. And within a couple weeks, you should start to see an improvement in energy, in mental focus, in digestive wellness. So it's such a simple and effective tool, and it's something most people don't know about on the day-to-day.
Well, I think that's true. Actually, I think it's really interesting. I'm a giant nerd, so I read everything I get my hands on. And I talk to people about that all the time. They don't realize how important stomach acid is to the nutrients, because it's got to help break down the nutrients you're missing, minerals, and even hormone balance are relating it to now. And to your point, a lot of people think acid reflux is too much acid. It's not enough. So I think that's actually a really great tip that I've never heard before. So that's interesting. Thank you. Okay, so we're starting off our day strong. We're making maybe a little extra time, making it a priority. One thing we find with business owners, one thing I find myself as a business owner, sometimes it's hard to motivate yourself to make that time. Have you found it something that's worked for people successfully to say, hey, I am important enough? A lot of us, we get caught up in our business is the most important, our family is the most important. How do we get there and say, if I'm not around, if I don't have the energy, if I'm not performing, none of that's going to be there anyway? Like, is there a good technique or a good thought process to make that a priority?
Mm-hmm. Well, often the transition to health starts with a fire. It starts with a very small fire. Maybe it's just a little, if you imagine your home, right? Maybe your pilot light goes out and you see a little wisp of smoke around the stove, and then sparks start flying, and then the curtains start catching on fire, and then all of a sudden there's a burning building behind them, and people will come to me, they'll come to my practice, or they'll call me up and they'll say, yeah, I think, it's almost like I smell smoke, but I can't quite put my finger on it. And like the house, we'll do a discovery call and I see that their house is totally on fire. So there is a class of people that wait until the building is completely on fire and ready to burn. And I'm going to generalize and make a horrible generalization, but most of the people who come to my practice are women, because we tend not to wait till the building is on fire. Men come to me when they're full-blown with diabetes, heart disease, and over 300 pounds. The women come to me when they've gained 10 pounds. So there is a difference there. But the bottom line is the more pain someone is in, the faster they are willing to do the work and get the results. That, for some people, it's easier to motivate when that building's on fire and they're like, yeah, I think I should do something about it now. But for the rest of us who aren't, who are kind of in that middle zone where we feel okay, but, we're starting to feel a little more tired during the day, or we have cravings, or we just are constantly on the hustle because we can't catch up. We get home, we're trying to work out, we don't have our meals ready. I do have a couple strategies, okay? One is the art of meal prep, and that is making meals in batches. It takes about 2 hours to make 3 different recipes. One of my favorite things to do is put things in a slow cooker. I'll make a stew with cubed meat, beef or lamb, potatoes, onions, carrots, celery, and a jar of tomato sauce, a little vinegar, a little honey, done. And some spices. I just let that sit. Then I like to roast a whole chicken and a pan of potatoes or sweet potatoes. And, I'll make a big salad, okay? That's like meal 2. And that's like 4 days of our week right there. And then the third is to always have something already in the freezer that I can pull out. Or, what I do with the leftovers, like tonight, like last night I roasted, I didn't even buy the whole chicken. I bought all the parts, the drumsticks and the legs and the thighs, and I roasted a pan of that. And then tonight we'll pull them out and just make tacos with the leftovers. That's what I'll do. I just take some pre-cut cabbage and mix that with some dill and vinegar. That's the base. And then I'll put the chicken on top and we put it in a grain-free tortilla. Voila. So meals are super simple. I'm not gourmet. I don't care. I just want everybody fed and done. So making meals in advance is a really important priority. So it's just automated. You don't have to think. The other thing about prepping meals in advance is that it takes a lot of the stress and the mental real estate out of your week. Once it's just done and out of the way, then it becomes automated, and you can use that energy to focus on other things. Sometimes it takes more energy and stress not to do it than to actually do it. So doing it just gets it out of the way. You can do it, early in the morning. The slow cooker you can do overnight when you're asleep. You don't even have to think about it. So just having 3 basic recipes, if you don't mind a little repetition and leftovers, or we call them fancy French food meals, leftovers. So that will just take a lot of stress and put a lot of ease and joy back into your week. You can use that time when you're not cooking the rest of the week to actually enjoy your family or get extra work done.
Perfect. That's great, and that's a great strategy for business owners. So I think that's helpful when it comes to saving time and getting meals ready and eating well. One thing business owners face a lot of social events. There's a lot of cocktail hours, networking, dinners. What's a strategy for that? Especially if you start drinking, all of a sudden you're not so focused on eating right. So if you're headed out for the night, if you're headed out for social events, if you're headed out for 4 social events in a week, how do you prepare for that, plan for that?
Couple of things. Number one is and this is the biggest story that I hear from business owners, and they're like, oh, you don't understand. You can't just order a salad for dinner. And the fact is, no one is forcing any food down your throat. No one is forcing any drinks down your throat. So you have to remember that you are actually in charge, and we have to all put on our big girl pants, our big boy pants, pull them up, and say exactly what you're thinking. We're also afraid of disappointing other people and not living up to expectations. And at the end of the day, the onus is on us. And somebody will respect you when you're lean and you're losing weight and your belt notches are you're getting more and more belt notches and you're lean and fit, versus someone who just says, I can't help, I'm being carried along this wave and I have no way of stopping it. There's a disconnect there, because that means there's a complete gap in the way you run your business and the way you run your life. And so I help people close that gap. So a great strategy to do that is with intentional eating. And you say to yourself, I am not going to drink tonight, or I am only going to drink on a weekend, or I am only having 1 or 2 drinks this whole week. And you stick to it. If you can't, like for me, I find booze can be a phenomenal trigger. And once I have one, then I want more. And then I'll want sweets, especially like if I have wine. Wine is a very big sugar trigger to me, but gin is not. So I figured out what works for me, but it's really setting your intention and sticking to it. There's no excuse for not living your life the way you run your business. If there is, that means you probably have a gap other places in your life and other places in your business. So, be a grown-up about it. Take ownership.
That makes perfect sense. So, one question I think a lot of people have, there are thousands of diet programs, books, blogs, pills, supplements, etc. And I'm sure as a holistic nutritionist, you tend to address the whole picture and how to deal with that. But someone that just wants to get started, that's maybe overwhelmed with paleo versus Weight Watchers versus high carb, low carb, high fat, low fat, 6 meals a day, 1 meal a day, what are your recommendations for getting started, something that they can believe in, so they're not facing a doubt in themselves and a doubt in their program?
So first of all, hire someone who is credentialed. I'll let you in on a dirty little secret. I go into Facebook groups, weight loss groups, and I go and spy, because I like to see what are the issues that people are dealing with, because I'm out of touch, right? I live a very different life than a lot of people. I eat really clean and healthy, and I know what works for me. So I'm out of touch with like the everyday American who's ordering Domino's and eating Cheetos and all this other garbage. So I go into these weight loss groups, and it's all pyramid schemes. It's all run by coaches who've never had a private practice, never worked in a hospital or a doctor's office, have no medical experience or credentials. Hire someone with credentials. Hire an integrative doctor. Hire a naturopathic physician. Hire a holistic and integrative dietitian. Okay, that's one thing. Go with someone credentialed. If you go and hire some schlock off the street who says, I lost all this weight, and this was one of my family members, she lost all this weight taking all of this chemical, God knows what was in the supplements, right? And then was selling to every Tom, Dick, and Harry and was an expert on the subject. Go to a professional on the subject, okay? Hire, this happened with a family member of mine. She lost all this weight taking all of these supplements, which I researched them. There's a tremendous amount of chemicals in them, and then was selling to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that she was now the weight loss authority. That's not how any of this works, okay? And it's rarely sustainable. So please don't buy from an MLM company. Please go through a credentialed practitioner. We vet all of the supplements. We spend a lot of times finding the right products that are made by reliable manufacturers that don't put fillers in their supplements. Often supplements have more filler and dye than active ingredients, or the active ingredients are in such low doses it is laughable and you are getting ripped off. So I'm going into the dark side, okay? But hire a licensed professionals who knows what they're doing. Number 2, my first book, it's called Eat, Drink, and Be Gorgeous. And the whole motto of the book is your body may be a temple, but who says it can't be a nightclub? That book, okay, that book came out 10 years ago. I will tell you, self-promotion going on I am still earning plenty of royalties on that book every year because the messaging is pretty much the same. A couple of things have changed, but it's basically the same. It's a great foundation for eating a whole foods diet. Walk before you run, okay? If something says they're going to completely revamp your eating in 30 days, no. Start with one thing, master that. So start with a green juice in the morning. Master that. Do it for a month. See how you feel. Then start revamping your breakfast. So a great way I get results with my clients is just to change their breakfast and nothing else because it doesn't feel overwhelming. It's doable, and it will set you up for incredible energy the rest of the day. So I tell people, ditch the cereals. The cereals actually have chemical ingredients. Some of them have industrial chemicals in them. So ditch the cereal. I don't care if it's organic. It's usually all starch. If you want a higher protein cereal, have steel-cut oats or some gluten-free oats. Have a fruit smoothie. You can put some protein powder in or not. Or you could just put in some avocado and a handful of spinach and some cherries and bananas and like a dairy-free nut milk. Or you can have some hard-boiled eggs, okay, and some avocado and tomato. Or you can have a leftover chicken breast or burger if you're more paleo. If you do any of those 4 breakfasts and you just keep rotating, or you have a vegetable omelet and you have a green juice before that, like your day is going to be so much better off, especially if you're working out in the morning. Now imagine taking a spin class at 5 a.m. or kickboxing, and then you go and eat a bowl of breakfast cereal. Like you're going to be nodding off by 11 a.m. But if you do it instead and you switch and you have, a vegetable omelet and a big bowl of fresh fruit, you're going to be fueled with real, whole, nutritious food. So go one step at a time. Once you've mastered breakfast, then you work on lunch, then you work on dinner. And shop in the outer aisles of the grocery store. The inner aisles are salt and sugar. So if you're buying foods without any labels on them or less than 5 ingredients, they're pretty much a real food. So you want to think about making your food guide pyramid like this, okay? Our current food guide pyramid is like bread at the bottom, bread and cereal, right? My food guide pyramid, it's vegetables and fruits, the bottom. That is 50% of your diet, okay? Then you add in protein, or if you're vegan, just a complex starch, sweet potatoes. You can have white potatoes. You can have brown rice, beans, legumes, whole winter squash, butternut squash, quinoa, millet, amaranth. Whole foods and ancient grains if you tolerate grains, okay? Proteins should be clean proteins. Farm fresh eggs, which we can all get these now. They're in our farmers markets. There's no excuse. You can get farm fresh eggs pretty much anywhere. You can get grass-fed meats, and you can buy those online if you can't get them locally. You can get wild Alaskan salmon. I buy mine online from a company called Vital Choice. All of these things, just clean proteins. So if you tolerate grains too, you can have quinoa or amaranth or millet. You can have butternut squash, beans, and legumes. All of those are whole foods and real foods. When you want protein, think about farm fresh eggs, which you can find. They're becoming ubiquitous, thankfully. Wild Alaskan salmon. I order mine online from a company called Vital Choice. You can find grass-fed beef, pastured lamb. All of these things you can order pretty simply online with the whole paleo movement. And then, at the top are you can certainly have good quality fats, avocado, coconut oil, olive oil, nuts and seeds. And if you want a sweetener, use some raw honey or maple syrup because there's at least some nutrition in there. But if you eat that way, 80% of your diet, if 50% of your plate is fruits and vegetables and the rest is some protein and a starch, like you'll be golden. You'll see your health shift in incredible ways, and your energy and your mental focus. Just getting off the processed foods is key.
Okay, perfect. So since we're talking about ingredients, let's address the one hot topic in the room, gluten. What's the deal with gluten?
Yeah, the problem isn't actually gluten. The problem is that most gluten has been genetically modified since the 80s, believe it or not, and it's sprayed with Roundup, which is a chemical made by Monsanto that we use as a weed killer that is very toxic and poisonous and linked to breast cancer. I mean, even Melania Trump has banned GMOs from the White House and anything coated with Monsanto on it. So I was like, yes, total victory for us. So, and it's, I can give you a great example. You know, my son has been sensitive to gluten for, we figured it out when he was 2, and we put him on an organic sourdough bread where the gluten is sprouted, soaked, fermented properly. I mean, this base is 100 years old, the sourdough base. He tolerates it fine. He doesn't get asthma. He doesn't get congestion, anything. So it's not the gluten. It's how it's processed. If grains were properly processed, soaked, threshed, sprouted, we could all tolerate them better. So, you know, that's why some people do better with Ezekiel bread versus regular bread. But GMOs are everywhere. They're in every processed food. They're even in some vegetables that we're eating now. So you got to stay away from it because it's changing our DNA. It's changing our genetic expression of illness. And we're very addicted to our flour products. But once you shift, you know, we do flour, we do almond flour, we'll do coconut flour, we'll do cassava flour. We do lots of different alternative flours that are organic, non-GMO, and we do fine with them. And they're delicious. We make like pancakes on the weekends, or sometimes we'll make muffins or banana breads with them. They're really good.
Perfect. Okay. So you have one concept I think applies probably for business and nutrition that might be interesting. Talk to us about this concept, and if I say the word wrong, correct me, of being an intuitarian.
Oh, I love it. So being an intuitarian is when you are dialed into your eating. How many times have you actually asked yourself, like, what does my body actually want to eat? Your mind, you know, there's a great meme I saw. It's like, my mind says wine and chocolate, but my genes say, for the love of God, woman, eat a salad. Like, my mind psychologically, when I'm stressed, will say, oh, come on, eat a square of dark chocolate. And that's what my mind says, which is really saying, I'm really stressed right now. And so we kind of need to unpick. Now I know that that's my battle cry. Like, that's my default button. When my mind says, I want chocolate, I'm like, no, stop, rewind, pump your brakes. Maybe you need some chamomile tea. Okay, schedule a bath for yourself tonight. Like, call a friend, do some deep breathing, go shoot hoops with your son. You know what I mean? So becoming an intuitarian means dialing in and understanding that a craving for junk is not necessarily what your body wants. It's teasing out the conversation and yet connecting to. Most of us, when we eat, don't think that our head is connected to our stomach. We think that it's very disjointed. So our head and our body, most of us don't make the connection that what we put in our mouths actually goes to our stomach and out through our bodies. So it's important to stop being mindful when you eat and say, okay, I'm craving something, but what am I really craving? What is it that my body really needs? My body, during acute times of stress, actually probably needs a green juice and some salad. And if I want carbs, I'm going to have some sweet potatoes or white potatoes and make mashed potatoes with that, because that's really grounding and comforting, but it's still a whole food. And intuitively, when my mind wants the cheeseburger, the pizza, the chocolate, the chips, especially when I'm eating them at the counter, I'm like, something's wrong. What is really happening? You're probably really stressed. You didn't earn all the income you wanted. Your kid's driving you nuts. Your spouse did something without running it by you first. Whatever's happening, that's what really needs to be addressed. Okay? And then when you understand that, then you can really sit back and say, what does my body really want today? Do I want something sweet, salty, spicy, crunchy? Do I need more protein? Is my blood sugar a little bit low? Do I need more carbs? Because I lifted a lot of weights and did a spin workout today. I probably need more carbs today. So it's spending some time reconciling that. And people, if you're not tuned in, if you've never done this before, I highly recommend keeping a food log. It is the greatest form of cognitive behavioral therapy. And if you're someone who loves apps, you can do it on an app. You just dial in what you're eating. Or just keep texting yourself your log all day. But keep track of what you're eating. All of a sudden, when you go to reach for that chocolate and you know you have to write it, you have a silent accountability partner right there. So it rewires your brain, and it takes the judgment out of the eating. You can just say, okay, I noticed I didn't lose weight this week, but I also had like 4 or 5 cocktails with all the business dinners, and I ate a lot of those pigs in a blanket that I probably shouldn't have. So there's my answer. And all of a sudden you start saying, okay, now I understand.
Well, that's great. And I think, again, it's something that business owners can relate to too, because if pieces of your business, if you're not paying attention, the whole's not working the right way either. So we have time for probably one more question. And I'd like to take a little bit of a left turn. I saw that you do write to women's empowerment and women in the workplace. And we have several women presenters and hopefully a lot of women entrepreneurs watching. What's one thing that you find that a lot of women business owners aren't focusing on that they really need to?
Self-care and giving themselves permission to say no to things. I think women, we tend, again, I'm generalizing here, but even as entrepreneurs, even the women in the highest power positions need permission to say no. We're such people pleasers, and we want to get everything done, and we want to cover everything. We want to have our kids, nice lunches packed, and we want to, be the perfect caregiver at home while running an entire business, and it doesn't work. You can't. You're not a robot. You can't possibly, unless you clone yourself, you can't possibly do all these things at once. So something's got to give. You have to say no somewhere. So maybe you decide to order in meal delivery or hire a chef so someone can do it for you. Maybe you hire a nanny part of the time to get your things done for you. But either way, women especially, we have to take time for ourselves. You have to. I don't care if it's 20 minutes of deep breathing. I don't care if it's a 10-minute meditation app. At some point during the day, you need to do something for yourself. For me, my non-negotiable is some kind of physical activity, because I am just not a nice person to my family until I have that. And once I have that and a cup of tea, I'm like the happiest, nicest person in the world. And it has to be in nature a lot of the times for me. I don't like working out in a gym as much. So it varies for everybody, but I think self-care and saying no is the greatest act of compassion and love, and having really firm boundaries is actually really great. So it means, like, yes, your kids will be fine. If you park them in front of the TV for half an hour, they will be fine. Everyone will be fine without you. It's just retraining ourselves to say yes to ourselves, and retraining our families, our boss, our colleagues, whatever, to say yes to ourselves. And the more you say yes to yourself and no and to others, and create boundaries within limits, obviously, but we will start normalizing the culture and creating that place of being our new normal, where it's built into our workday. Some quality of life is scheduled into our workday, and it's a non-negotiable. So find your non-negotiables. I say the same thing with diet too. Find your 3 non-negotiables that you won't give up. Maybe it's, extra heavy cream in your coffee, which I believe in. Maybe it's a mini Reese's peanut butter cup every day. Maybe it's 2 glasses of wine a week. Whatever your non-negotiables are, keep those and work around the rest. And you will have total balance and sanity that way.
That's perfect. I tell a lot of people, I don't think you can be ready for other people if you don't take care of yourself. So I think that's a really good point, and a lot of business owners get caught in that trap. So this was really great, other than our technical difficulties along the way. We appreciate you sticking through with us and making this work anyway. For anyone that wants to keep in touch with you, keep following you, dive deeper with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
You can go to my website, estherblum.com. It's ESTHERBLUM.com. That has all my social media handles. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn. So I would love to connect with you, and thank you for this opportunity. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you for the great information. I'm sure everyone, again, this was something I thought was really important, and I learned a lot too, so it was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.